Ascential Experts. My name is Dina Reyes, and joining me today is Ascential CEO Duncan Painter. We'll be discussing Ascential's new white paper, Retail 5.0, which looks at how CPGs can be successful in the next generation of retail. Duncan, welcome.
Good morning, Dina, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. First things first, what is Retail 5.0?
For the last 8 years, we've been tracking the various generations of retail, and Retail 5.0, which we estimate will be in full force at the end of 2023, is what we consider to be the next generation of the retail model to consumers. So it's not talking about retailers alone, it's talking about the model of companies producing products and selling them through various channels, but digitally primarily to consumers.
Duncan, can you start by giving us a very light overview of the viewpoint you're outlining in the white paper?
Digital commerce marketplaces. So today in the West, most people would associate that with Amazon. Of course, in the East, if we go into China, there's now 4 or 5 very effective marketplaces competing and growing rapidly for consumers' business, effectively to be the platform that people use pretty much most of the time to buy products. And what we're seeing is with that evolution to multiple marketplaces, and the best example of that has been in the West across the pandemic, has been in the US, where both Walmart, Instacart, Shopify, obviously with their relationship with Facebook, are all now making a major play to come in and be that sort of single super app or super location for consumers to interact with day to day, to acquire and buy the consumer products they wish to get their hands on and get delivery for. And that, why it's such a big shift is because we have all become accustomed to using, platforms like Google for search, where that more generic search then leads us to a single location or a set of locations to try and then do a further search to buy product. But in the future, what we see in the marketplaces in China is that they have now surpassed that generalized search. So if you're Baidu, for instance, which was the Google of China, the Baidu business is nowhere near as successful as it was 5 years ago. And consumers just do not engage with it as heavily as they did 5 years ago, because now they can go on to, say, Tmall, the Alibaba platform, or JD or Pinduoduo, and use that as their primary search platform to find the products they want to buy. And so what that's meant is that less people go on and do a generic search. People go on because what they want to do is hit a platform where they can find out the specific products they can buy right now and know that they can buy them and get delivery of them and get that delivery conveniently. And so what you're going to see is this big shift, I think, of people moving away, particularly in the West, of using Google and generic search, and moving directly into platforms where they know, like Amazon, where they know they're going to put in a search, they can find the product, they know they're going to get it at the best price that they can get it, and they're going to get delivery convenience attached to it. And of course, with the expansion of the value-added services that everyone's offering in terms of entertainment offerings, obviously Prime services for Amazon, the same will come with Walmart. What these mega platforms are trying to do is get consumers to land on their space and stay there.
So by your own admission, your view is quite provocative and it goes against the spending patterns of most CPGs. What has their reaction been, and why have you come to this conclusion?
Well, they certainly agree with me it's provocative, but it was deliberately aimed to be so, because this is sort of, again, another big shift in the way that organizations will work to thrive in the digital economy. And what we're seeing is a seismic shift right now in the way that everyone perceives that the digital economy works. And so most of them, when they sit back and think about it, really do see on a day-to-day basis already some of the shifts that the paper's talking about. And I think there's a real recognition on their side that the way they're configured, set up and structured to operate today isn't going to be effective if this new Retail 5.0 landscape becomes true.
And does it feel like there's space for more than one platform, or Do we think we'll be in a situation where there's one platform to rule them all?
Yeah, look, well, certainly what if you'd have believed, look back 3 years ago, you would have thought it was a fight in China between Alibaba and JD, and it looked like at the time that Alibaba was winning that, and that there would be just one platform. But obviously, what we've seen in the last couple of years is new entrants into China, but with the platform model, and they are winning. I mean, Pinduoduo has come through very strongly. It now has, over 500 million consumers using its platform day in, day out, and that's from pretty much a standing start over the last 4 or 5 years. So definitely these players, can penetrate. And the way that is probably best to think about it is to think about it in terms of retail. So if you go back sort of a generation ago, there were a number of very big retailers, but they appealed to particular segments or consumer groups. So, retailers who were looking for ABC1 or high affluent customers would appeal one way. People who were looking for more price promise led customers like Walmart would appeal to them another way. And so what they had to do was adapt their business model to really be optimal to the way that those consumers wanted to buy and obtain product. The third and most obvious one was when platforms that allowed people to buy products on credit. So there's, various sort of solutions. And I think what you'll see, Dina, is that the marketplaces will adapt and are already adapting to sort of carve out their consumers and where they're going to win. And the best example of that probably is, Amazon right now has been very focused on metropolitan areas, winning in the big cities, winning on fast convenience, mainly appealing to high affluent customers because frankly, if you want to live in the center of New York or Manhattan, that sort of defines your demographic a little bit because just the general cost of living there is so high. Whereas Walmart sees a huge opportunity with its distributed retail platforms, where what you've got to imagine is those thousands of Walmart stores that you might have imagined visiting in the past, they've just become huge warehouses on local delivery for Walmart right in the heart of across America. So what they're appealing to is really outside of those metropolitan areas where Walmart doesn't have a competitive advantage. They're trying to win in the suburban and rural areas, where when you go on Walmart.com, you're doing a search where you think you're searching for all of the products, across Walmart in the US. But the reality is what they're doing initially is serving you search, which is primarily around what products are available for you within 10 miles of the local store. And then secondly, what they're doing in their business model is that they're trying to encourage people to do the last mile collection themselves. So what they're saying is, if you drive to the store, will be very organized and structured in how that works. So you get a pickup slot, you come through a drive-through effectively, like we've got so used to buying food now. You pop your trunk, in goes your products, they close the trunk and off you drive. Why is that so important? Well, that allows Walmart to be a very price-focused platform, because the most expensive element of digital commerce is the last mile delivery. So if you can introduce a model where you remove that last mile delivery for a high proportion of the sales, you can be a very price led and very sort of promotion led platform. Whereas if you think about what I've just said for Amazon, Amazon is doing all of its activity in, where it is delivering to the last mile, and that's very cost inhibitive. That means they've got to be massively efficient to compete with Walmart on price. So it's they're just developing different styles and different business models. So it's going to be a very different landscape. But when you step back and you think about it from a consumer packaged good company perspective, what they've got to think about is how do they optimize to win on all of them? Because now they've got very different business models that they're trying to think about for the end platforms, and hence our slightly provocative paper that suggests to them that if you want to win, you need to learn to win on these platforms rather than learning to win in generic search.
So, keeping in that theme, which CPG companies do you think are best placed to win in this new era?
Well, there are a number of them that have been very progressive in engaging with marketplaces. Unfortunately, there are examples of them which are always the most progressive types of organisations. So the likes of Procter and Gamble, when you look at their total percentage of sales through e-commerce today, they're one of the highest percentage of sales through e-com of any of the brands. There's others, Newell, 3M. They've been very progressive, very front footed on their engagement with the marketplaces. But I think ultimately it's organizations that are willing to take short term economic pain to have long term distribution gain. And what I mean by that is, if you are a CPG brand today and you want to reallocate effectively inventory or stock out of mainstream distribution channels into e-com, there's a very good chance you're going to lower your margins in the short term to do that, because distributing through bricks and mortar still remains for CPG businesses the most profitable way to distribute product, right? So, it's very profitable for the retailer. It's very profitable in comparison to e-com, by the way, for the CPG. If you take a high proportion of your product and move it into digital, there's a very good chance today that you aren't making much or if any product profit on that distribution of those products, but you've got to be willing to do it now to win for the long term. Because if you don't become a predominant brand that knows how to excel and win on these marketplaces, as we outlined in one of our previous papers on Retail 4.0, marketplaces are phenomenally competitive. If you just think about the practicality of what happens in bricks and mortar retail, there is a fixed shelf. There is a fixed amount of space to which, if you're a manufacturer, if you can get a high proportion of your products into that space, by almost default that you're going to win a set amount of market share, because at the end of the day, consumers are going to walk along, and if they've only got a restricted element of shelf to look at, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get sales, right? Whereas in the digital e-com world, the shelf changes every time someone presses search. So literally every time you search for products online, that's bringing out a different shelf set. And of course, on these digital commerce platforms, you can bid for media, you can bid to promote your products. That's part of the platform, is the reverse auction. But that bid lasts as long as one search. So that gives you an idea of just how competitive the landscape will be.
So, flipping the lens on Ascential, how are you organizing Ascential services to support CPGs in adapting to this new Retail 5.0?
From a digital commerce perspective, it's very obvious. We've been building out capabilities, tools, and brands that can really help them win when they're on the marketplaces. So, obviously, we have our Edge business, which is all about the measurement and understanding whether they're winning share or not. We've also expanded that into China. So through our Yimian specialist business, we can do that across the most competitive marketplaces, which are the Chinese. And then, of course, we have Flywheel across the Western markets, where we're helping them figure out how to optimize and trade on a daily basis on these marketplaces. So we've got a full set of tools there, where we are the only global leader today that can help people figure out how to optimize their sales intra-week, intra-day on the marketplaces. And in this last 12 months, we've been accelerating even more, where our algorithms and that drive those trading platforms are now looking at not just optimizing within Amazon or optimizing within Walmart, but thinking about how can we optimize right now, today, for that brand across 6 platforms, where we're implementing and spending effectively their promotion money or their advertising money to drive the maximum optimized sales to the best yield for them in that platform today. So that's where we are on the platforms themselves. But the criticality, of course, as you know, Dina, is it's not just a case of turning up on the platform and doing well. there's a couple of fundamental steps before you get there, and this is where we are putting a lot of focus on. So the first one, if you go right back to our product design division or business unit, that's all about helping people really understand how are they designing, thinking about, and selecting the kind of products they are going to manufacture over the next couple of years. So when they arrive in the market, they have the products that consumers want to buy. So number one is create a product that people want, right? Because if you miss the trend, or if you turn up on the wrong trend with product, it's not going to matter how brilliant you are at optimizing on a digital commerce environment. At the end of the day, if people don't want the product, they don't want the product, right? So that's the first thing, is get the product right. And then the second area, as you know, is in our marketing business unit. We're really focusing on how we then help organizations spend their money creatively in marketing to really stand out as well. Because although, yes, they're going to have to be world class at optimizing for marketing when they get onto the platforms, what you want are people coming in with a highly receptive mindset to your product before they arrive there. And so again, that demand of highly creative marketing, who are the world's best at it? How are we influencing across many new media channels to land that message to the age groups that really appeal for those new products? So that's all through the benchmarking, obviously, of Cannes Lions, the launch of the Lions brand to help people do that 365. So really bring the expertise and assessment to who really are the organizations that enable that. And then the third area is our investment that we've been making in a platform called Hudson MX. And this is around our commitment to really transform the underlying platforms that allow businesses to manage and administer and effectively get payment for the media worldwide. And if you look at the media industry today, they are running on archaic mainframe systems that struggle to maintain in a 90-day window, let alone in this far more dynamic space, which is going to become truly digital. And so again, a big effort we're putting there is, how do we enable the industry to be able to actually manage in this very fast moving environment? And that isn't sticking with their mainframe platforms that have been in there since, nearly 30 years. So, that Hudson MX investment for us and a new platform for media management is also a critical step for the business.
Sounds very exciting. So, Duncan, just finally, before we wrap up, you hinted in the report that there could be new entrants alongside the current major e-commerce platforms. Are you referring to the Googles and the Facebooks?
Look, I think anyone who is in the digital community and are digital media players over the next few years, particularly with the cookie change, so effectively moving away from cookie targeting and having to have first party data, as you come into this space, I think anyone and everyone who is not able to provision a sort of total digital experience to product purchase are going to be in danger in this new model. So, people who have sat in the middle just providing traffic media platforms or traffic access are not going to have as strong a position as they've had in the past. As we just implied, if you're a user, a consumer, and you can go onto a single website and get 100% of the product you want, where it's convenient, it's going to be there an hour later if it's an end delivery, or it's going to be when you want to go and collect it at the right price. That really does represent a serious threat to the media traffic advertising platforms, in the same way that people like news and newsprint and other environments had to face seismic change. So will those major media players. And so what you're going to see is media platforms already, starting to up the ante very quickly on how they can provide that end-to-end all the way through to purchase experience. But I think you're going to see over the next couple of years, if these marketplaces really do get traction, and if you think about it in general sense, if Walmart, Kroger, Target in the United States, Instacart, Amazon, of course, who are already doing it and doing it, as the absolute market leader, if they come in heavily with media-led businesses to attract consumers, there's 5 to 6 mega brands there that have the retail, the delivery of product capability that will now be directly attacking that media spend in the middle. And if they can demonstrate, which is why Amazon's media business is proving to be so powerful, if they can demonstrate 100% correlation between you place that media expense with me and these are the exact number of sales I drove for you, there's no delineation, there's no imagination required between, it's a 1-for-1. Spend that, this is what you got. That's a very compelling argument to brands. And so you can see that why a brand would want to very rapidly move towards that model. And that potentially means a threat to the organizations who sit in the middle today, offer advertising, but no connection to what actual revenue or income for the organization that drives. In fact, almost with the walled gardens concept, almost a position where they haven't wanted to share that data. So it's kind of, this really does change the game. And it's why you can see Amazon's media business being so successful, because they're such an early entrant. They really understand this correlation strongly. And you get instant daily feedback. You see, you spend that money in the auction, this is precisely how much revenue and profit you made, and you get that the same day. People like us can then tell you how you fared against your competitors the same day, or even intraday now. So compared to an environment where you spend billions of dollars on effectively traffic movement, to which you never quite know whether that gave you a sale or not, it's not as compelling an offer.
Well, Duncan, thank you very much for your time today. For anyone that's interested, the Retail 5.0 white paper is available to download on Ascential.com. Thank you.